Welcome, folks. Good to Vach, Shavua Tov, a new week, new learning, new Parsha. Parsha's Emor. Emor means to say. So we're going to say. We got a lot to say today. All right, let's get right into it. It's a bit lengthy. Hashem and Hashem said to Moshe, Emor, say. Right? Unusual term, Emor. The Yomer usually, right? It's Emor, say. Right? Speak. Ella kohanim to the kohanim, right, to the priests, bnei Aaron, that are the sons of Aaron, v'amarta alehem, and you shall say to them, lenefesh, to a soul, to a person, in other words, lo yitama, you should not become impure, ba'amav, among his people. Okay? Remember, the kohanim are special, they have special purity as a result, and this is where we learn about that special purity that they have to have because they serve in the holy temple. Rashi, Emor v'amarta, look at the verse. If you look at the verse carefully, you would have a question immediately. It says, Emor, say, right? And then it says, Ve'amarta, and you shall say. Well, if I'm saying, am I not already saying? Why Emor ve'amarta? So Rashi picks up and it says, that you should forewarn, the adults should forewarn the children, the minors, regarding this. In other words, it's the duty of the adults to warn the children who are kahanim, right? That they also have to be careful with this.
So that's why say is said twice.
Exactly, and others to say, but to also what's alluded to over here, at least, I guess, if you will, right? It's to say it's also to, right? Say indicates the adults that it's forbidden for them to make themselves impure for the come in contact with the corpse, right? And that you shall say, meaning, also it says, you shall say, and you shall say, so referring to the children too. Bnei Aaron, the sons of Aaron, Yochel Chalolim. Why does it say Bnei Aaron? Say the Kahanim. Why do you say Bnei Aaron? They're the only ones who are Kahanim, right? So why does it say that? I might think that there is a prohibition of the Kohanim that they shouldn't defile themselves to come in contact with a dead person. This also applies to Chalalim. Chalalim are those who are children born from unions that were forbidden for the Kohanim, right? So the father's a Kohen, but he married, he's not allowed to marry a divorcee, for example, right? So so this would be the child that would be from that union would be considered a chalal, right? Which they become, they don't do the service.
Is there a term for Cohen who married Gentile? Is there a special word for that?
No, that's not included in.
Just the children.
So this person, even though he or she was born of like a forbidden marriage, still has this.
Well, that I know they're Jewish because it's a Jewish mother,
Yeah.
right? But the child then becomes a cholol, meaning that they are not in the category of doing the service.
But this restriction still applies to them.
Yeah.
Right?
To who?
To the child whose father is a Cohen and whose mother is a divorcee or something like that.
Hold on, just sorry, 1 second.
For example, have to do services for a Cohen. But it's the Cohen. And they call it something else. I'm the Cohen.
1 second.
I forget to say.
She said something.
So the fact that halale means that they're disqualified from doing the service.
Okay.
So the fact that it says bnei Aaron, so I might think that therefore they're that they would be that they would know that the prohibition for Kohanim to defile themselves, that they would have this prohibition, it would applies also to them because they're the sons of Aaron.
Exactly.
But then it says Kohanim.
Okay.
Talmud Laimar, but the verse says otherwise. Kohanim. How do I say can disqualify themselves through, they can sort of impurify themselves because they do not do the
Because they're a
service.
son of Aaron, but not a Kohen.
Exactly.
Okay.
Bnei Aaron, again, Rashi said, Bnei Aaron ab ale mumin b'mishma. So Bnei Aaron, this is those who are blemished and therefore may not perform the service, but they're also implied in this. They're not allowed to. Okay. They shall not become impure amongst their people. When the dead person is still amongst the people, mitzvah. That excludes a meis mitzvah. Meis mitzvah is someone that died on the path and is not amongst the people. And there's no one there but the kohen to bury that person.
Okay.
That kohen, then does become impure for that meis mitzvah, as it's called. Okay.
Yeah.
2. Ki'im l'she'erai. So you do not become impure for your people, right? Amongst the people, right? Except for the meis mitzvah, as we just said, right? Now, then who does he become impure? Ki'im, except l'she'erai, for a relative, hakarav elav, that is close to him. Li'imai, his mother, Ulaviv, his father, Livnai, to his son, Levita, his daughter, Ulachiv, and to his brother. Rashi, Ki'im l'she'erai. So who's this close one that's to him? Rashi says, that means his wife. Doesn't say wife, but it says close to him, which means his wife, because otherwise it's superfluous, right? Because the verse is telling us individually who. So now the third verse tells us to his sister. But his sister is different than the others. Habsula, that is a virgin, a kreva elav, that is close to him. Asher lo yihaisa leish, who was not to a man. In other words, she didn't get married yet. Leish, lo yitama, for her he shall defile. Right?
Yeah.
3, hakreva, who is close to him. Larabba is a arusa, that's including also someone who is arusa, means the first part of marriage, that they got engaged, what's called engagement in Torah law, not what we call engagement today, right? Because it means that you are two halves of one soul, that you are legally married, right? So but it wasn't consummated, right? It wasn't consummated. So that's including her that is close to him, that he can become impure, right?
Okay.
Who has not been unto a man, lemishka, meaning having relations. So she has not had relations. Once she's had relations, then he cannot become impure for her. When she passes away, in other words, he can't go. What it means is going to the funeral or going into the cemetery of the funeral. You can go outside. A kohen can be outside. Can't go into the cemetery because you become impure by going into the cemetery, right? Lo yitamav. Law yitama, rather, for her, he shall make himself a pure mitzvah. It's an obligation, in other words.
But then what if she was like the virgin, because she's still a virgin, so she's the virgin sister of one Cohen, but then she's engaged to this other Cohen. So then who's the one who buries her?
Engaged, so he does it. The engaged one doesn't, right?
Okay.
It wouldn't bury her. It would be the father,
Okay.
right? But I mean, it would be the community we do it because the father is a kohen too, right?
Okay.
So the father would become impure. Yes, a father for a daughter. Here we're talking about a sister, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about the daughter. That's not a question.
Rabbi, what's the meaning of arusa? Arusa means
Engaged. Engaged according to Torah. You gave a ring. That's the first part of the chuppah, right? That you give a ring. That's engagement. Back in the day, they did that, and then they prepared for 6 months, 12 months for the wedding. And then they moved in. That's the idea of chuppah, is the idea of creating a home. Okay. Lo yitama baal ba'amav lehecholoi. But a husband, because Baal means a husband, right? Lo yitama, he should not become impure. The husband, ba'amav, himself, the cause of desecration, well, among his people, lehecholo, to defile him. Let's see what this means. Doesn't sound very clear, the verse, right? Let's see Rashi. Lo yitama baal ba'amav lehecholo, the husband among his people shall not make himself impure to defile himself. Lo yitami should not make himself impure. Liishte psula. It means for an unfit wife. Shehu mechulal ba, that he became through whom he became defiled. But eda imay, when she is still with him. In other words, if a kohen is marrying someone who's not allowed to marry, like a divorcee, right? So, and now she passes away. He should not become impure for her. Okay? Even though they're married, it's not like there's a concept of marriage here, right? There is a concept of marriage. With a non-Jew, there is no concept of a marriage.
Yeah.
In others, in legality terms, we're not talking about living together. We're talking about the legality of halacha. So there is no concept of that for the non-Jew, right? But for the whether a Kohen or an Israelite, right? But there is a concept of marriage when he married the divorcee. There's marriage, but that has consequence that makes him now invalid for the service. That's what it means, right?
Yeah.
Or convert.
Yeah. While she is still his wife, right? That's all the simple meaning of the verse. That the husband should not make himself impure through his wife, as long as she is among the people. That is to say, that there are those who can bury her other than the husband. Because it's not a meis mitzvah. So what would be then the wife that I have said that the husband may not make himself impure? But I say she the heichale of one who is to defile him. That is to make him defiled of the kahuna. 1 second. Okay, so it's a bit nuanced over here. The kohen who is married to the person who he should not be married to, he's only unfit to do the service while he's married to her, right? He doesn't lose his status completely.
Yeah.
The offspring lose the status completely.
Yeah.
Okay? The offspring. But the kohen himself, if she passes away, like over here, doesn't lose that status. Okay?
I guess yeah.
Or gives a get, right? Divorce, or yeah, exactly. Right? So it doesn't lose that status.
When she dies, he gets the status back.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's the one that he should not become impure unless it's a meis mitzvah, because I've already said, right?
Yeah,
Meis mitzvah means there's no one else to bury her because you found her, whatever.
So her family has to bury her, the non-Cohen family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not relevant over here who has to do it, because there's a community always that has an obligation. So let's say there's no one, but that's not the point of the verse. So let's make sure we stay right, because that can get confusing.
Yeah.
There's a community, there's a beis din that has that obligation, right?
Yeah.
Whether there's someone or not someone, the community has for sure the obligation, right?
But it will not be a court.
But it won't be a kohen for sure. Yeah, that for sure won't be a kohen. That for sure not. Okay, 5. Okay, look, finished. I mean, finished with this point. Now we're going to another point. Okay. Lo yikrechu karcha, should not make a balding bald on their head, and the corners of their beard, lo yigalecha, they should not shave. And they should not make cuts in their flesh. We did. Thank you. Oh, someone's remembering. David, you're on your game.
He's focused.
He's focused. Yeah. He returned. Yes, exactly. So obviously, okay, let's see what Rashi tells us. Lo yikru karcha, they shall not make a bald spot. Al meis, this is on the sign of mourning over a dead person. What's the uniqueness over here? Who's being commanded over here? Who's being commanded over here?
The Cohen.
The Kohen. So Rashi asked, but didn't we already command every Israelite?
Yeah.
A Kohen is included in every Israelite, right? But we're not the non-Kohanim, the Israelites already commanded. Elah, but this command is repeated because it says the commandment concerning the non-Kohen, but the Israelite between a bald spot between your eyes. Yochel, I might think on the basis of that verse alone that lo chayiv al kol ha'rosh, you would not be liable for a bald spot anywhere else on the head. And that's between the eyes over here. That's when you're going to be right. If you're going to you're going to shave your head, a bald spot over here, like all of the non-Jews used to do to a sign of mourning for their dead, right? And if you would do that,
Seems to be that this is also including the dead, that you can't do that to the dead person. It seems to me.
Let's see Rashi. Okay, let's learn it. Right, between the Talmud Leimar, but the verse says otherwise over here, but Reicham on their head anywhere. Yomadu Yisrael mi Kohanim. So, in others, the law of the Kohen, which is actually not even here, but Roisham, it's in Deuteronomy, right, mentioning the entire head, to be derived from the Kohanim, B'Gzeirah Shava, from the Gzeirah Shava, meaning the we equate the verses as follows. Nemar kan karcha. Okay, let's go through this. It says the word karcha here means bald spot, right? So that's a unique term in the context of the Kohanim. Nemar lahalam b'Yisrael karcha, and it's stated earlier, right? Like we learned that it says by the non-Kohanim also karcha, right? So makan kol hareish. Just as over here, the prohibition is anywhere in the head, aflahal, and so too later in Deuteronomy, kol hareish b'mishma, it means anywhere in the head. Kol makam shi'ikarach b'reish, wherever you make a bald spot on the head, malahal, and just as below the verse states, explicitly the prohibition applies only when the bald spot is made al mace, over a dead person. Afkan, here too, regarding the prohibition addressing the Kohanim, it applies only al mace, over a dead person.
So in mourning, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't shave your head in mourning. It has nothing to do with that person. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a person, an act of mourning that they do over the dead, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't not to the dead person, al mace, because of the dead person.
Yeah.
Okay, right?
Yeah, I got that.
Morning ritual.
Morning ritual, right? Some people have a coffee morning ritual.
I ran here today.
Pas zikanam lo yigalechu, and they shall not shave the edge of their beard, lefisha nemar, since it says, be Israel, this prohibition concerning a Jew, all Jews, right, Israel, the edge of the beard, which is, right, loisashkis, there it says, do not destroy, right? Here it says, do not shave. There it says, do not destroy. Yochel liktum. So you might think that if you pluck the edge of your beard, with a malakit or tani, those are implements used for smoothing the skin by removing hair. Huh? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, chayv, that you should be liable for the violation of this commandment. Lakach nemer. That's why it says lo yigalecho, that you should not shave. Tisha she'ena chayv, that you're not liable. Ela al davar, but on something kuri geluach, which is termed shaving. Yesh boy hashchasa, that has destruction to the hair. V'zeu tar, and that's a razor. So in our verse, it's saying shaving. Previously, by an Israelite, it said destruction. So destruction, you might think that if you use a potion or something of that matter
Yeah.
would also be included.
Yeah.
No, so therefore our verse is saying, right, is saying shaving, meaning a shaving implement, meaning a razor. Okay? Next Rashi, and their flesh you shall not make a scratch Emor B'Yisrael, since it says by the Israelite, right, which we learned, they should not make a flesh a scratch over a soul, right? So the soul doesn't say flesh there. Here it says flesh. So Yachid, what's the difference? So you might think, so it's the 5 scratches for one dead person. So you would only be liable for one sin. Right? In other words, one sin, one offering, right? Because it's only over one person, right? Talmud Leimar, but the verse says otherwise, that you should not scratch a scratch. Meaning you're liable for each scratch, right? Each scratch that you make on your flesh, you're liable. You say because this saretis is superfluous. Lidrash, and it's meant to expound. Because it should said you should not make scratches. And therefore I would know lo saretis. You don't make a scratch. Don't make scratches.
Yeah.
In other words, because each scratch is its own prohibition.
Yeah.
Therefore, when you do multiple scratches for each one, you're liable, which means you have to bring an offering for each one. That's what the difference would be.
It says that he would be liable for having transgressed only one negative commandment if he does it 5 times.
No, you would think that.
Oh, I think that, okay.
It's superfluous. So that is one that makes that you're liable for each individual cut. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. Now, Kedeshimiyu, you got holy, you gotta be. Lelokeichem, to your God. Lo yichalu shem Elokeichem, do not profane, desecrate the name of your God, of their God. Right? God's name. Ki es Ishe Hashem lechem. Remember, we're still talking about the Kohanim over here, right?
Yeah.
Right. Why? Because it says Ishe Hashem, because the fire of God, lechem elokechem, and the bread of their God, hey makribim, they are offering. Right now, there's a Kohanim, they've got a service to do. The Hayu Kodesh, and need to be holy. Right? Rashi in 6, Kadeshi miyu, holy you shall be, al karcham, against their will. Yakdishum Bezdin, the court shall sanctify them, bekach, in this matter. It doesn't say Kadeshim EU. Remember that the word EU means you shall be and you will be. So Rashi's explaining over here that meaning you will be. How will you? Because the court will force it upon them. And others, they can't do these acts. Yeah. They can't like the guy says, I want to go to the funeral of the wife who he wasn't to be married to, right? Or to the sister that's married, right? The sister that's married, and I feel very strong. I want to do it, and so on. The court will hold them back. Why? Why would they do that? Because they're holy. Then they have to maintain their holiness. They have a service of God that they have to do. So that the court has to hold them back. They will hold them back. 7. Isha yikachu. You shall not marry a woman who's a chalala. He translates over here a prostitute. Interesting. Zaina. Yeah, the word zaina is a term for prostitute. The chalala. A chalala desecrated, or one who is desecrated. Lo yikachu. Shall not take. They shall not take. The isha grusha. So here it says very clearly, a woman who is divorced. Mi'isha from her husband, lo yikachu, the Kohanim shall not take. Regular Israelite could do, but a Kohen can't. He kodeshu le'elokav, because they are holy. The Kohanim are holy to God. Right. Rashi in 6. I mean in 7. Zoina, Shenivala Bilas Yisrael, a woman who had relations with a Jew, also law that is forbidden for her. Going, for example, Chai Bikri says, one whom relations carry a punishment of Karis, or Nisina, or a Mamzer, and so on. Right? So we learned those relationships that you're not allowed to have, right? Halala. What is a Shanoldam min Absulim Shibikona, a woman who was born from those unions unfit for the kahuna. Going, for example, Baal Salmana Mikoyin Gadol, the daughter of a widow from a Koyin Gadol. Right, so a Koyin Gadol married a widow. He's not allowed to.
Yeah.
He even has, because he's the high priest, so he can't even marry a widow. A regular Kohen could marry a widow. A divorcee can, but a widow he could, right? We're going to learn. So, so now there's the daughter that's born of that union. So that's a halala, right? Meaning, for example, Oy bas grusha v'chalutza mikoyin hedjin, or a daughter of a divorced woman or a chalutza from an ordinary koyin. And the halala literally means defiled one. Also includes in his chalala mina kuhuna, known as defiled from the kuhuna, al yedei bias echad mina psulim lekuhuna, by having relations or which are forbidden to the kuhuna. Okay. Verse 8. B'kidashtai, and he shall be sanctified. Ki lechem elekecha, because of the bread of your God, who makriv, he is offering. Kodesh yelach, holy he shall be for you. Ki kodesh ani, because I am holy. Hashem mikadshim, and Hashem who sanctifies. The Hashem who sanctifies, I am holy. Rashi vikidashte, and he shall be sanctified. She said, Al Karcha, against his will. Shim loy ratza ligarish. If a kohen does not want to divorce a forbidden woman that he has married, okay, or he gets lashes, v'yasrehu, and he's chastised for it, ad shigarish, until he divorces. In other words, the marriage is a marriage. It's an interesting thing, but still, he can't be in that relation. Kodesh yelach, he shall be holy to you. Noyeg by kedusha, you should treat him with holiness. Lifteyach rishain b'chol davar, that he takes priority to commence in all matters. Levarach rishain besuda. For example, if there's a kohen, he should lead the grace after meals, right? Because he's a kohen, right? He gets the first aliyah, of course, right? So he's getting these prioritized.
Yeah.
Number 9, Obas Ish, and the daughter of a man, Koyin, that's a Koyin. Leiseichel these days is Aviha. All right, there's a daughter of a Koyin that becomes desecrated by having by committing adultery. She desecrates. Her father she desecrates, who's a kohen. And if there's witnesses and warning and all that, burned in fire. Fire doesn't mean literally fire. It means that she drinks something that is fiery and not fire, but creates. Okay, let's see Rashi in number 9. A daughter of a man who's a kohen who will be defiled through having illicit relations. When she becomes defiled, al yedei znus, through having illicit relations. That she was subject to a bond of a husband, bizonsa. In other words, she was married, right? And she had illicit relations. Mina erisin, either from erisin, which is betrothal, or mina nisuin, or from complete marriage, meaning they live together. But the rabbis divided an opinion over this matter. But all agree, if the verse is only speaking, but pnuya of an unmarried woman. Whoa, I got confused over here. I have to read this again. Aha. Okay. So the verse is speaking about someone who is not married but has illicit relations. A woman. So the question is, the only question is though, does that include someone who was betrothed or not? Because betrothed is not living together. So that's where the question becomes.
Yeah.
She defiles her father. She defiled in disgrace. It's the honor of father. Because they say about him, Ara Shizu Yolad, cursed is one who fathered such an individual. Ara Shizu Gidel, cursed is one who raised such a person. So it's interesting. It seems from Torah the way it is that like the person that did wrong, they don't look at that person and like point the finger to them so much. They point the finger to the father, to the home. Look what kind of home they came from, that this is what happened.
Consequence of education.
Education, absolute education and the raising, right? Not just education, but the entire raising of that child. In other words, what people will do is that the reason she became this is because of the way she was raised. So therefore, who are they going to point fingers at, and who's going to like get, all the kind of? It's going to be the father, right?
Because the father acted the same way.
No, it doesn't say he acted the same way because he didn't raise properly. He didn't raise properly. So in other words, that's what people are going to say. And therefore, she defiled that's what Rashi is explaining, defiled the father's home. I mean, she defiled herself, right? And that's not what the verse says, right? Because people are going to say that look at the way that she was raised. Look what kind of parents she has. That's why she did what she did. That she defiled herself in such a way.
How is it that she came out this way? So it's as though she defiled the father's honor,
Yeah.
like that sort of thing.
Yeah, but yeah.
But it reflects on
it's reflecting on the home.
Yeah.
It's a reflection on the home. That's the point. And remember, these are Kohanim. So Kohanim are extra holy. So this is even more so, right? In other words, the home is a holy home, and this is what she did is more of a stain on the family.
This question is like, what happened to that house?
Right. Exactly. Okay. 10. Now, Kohen Agadol Me'achav, the Kohen who was greater than his brothers, Asher Yitzchak al Resha, that was poured upon his head, Shemen Amishcha, the oil of anointing, Mashiach, right? Umile is Yadai, and his hand, and it means his hands were full, but it means he was inaugurated. Lil Boishas have begun to wear the special clothing. It doesn't say special, but I added that word. To wear the clothing. Whose clothing? Kohen Gadol, right? The high priest we're talking about over here. Es Roishe lo Yifra, his hair should not go.
So it said go by it.
Huh?
In this translation, it says, not like this. The hair
Can go. In other words, he should cut his hair, as opposed to as opposed to when you're mourning, you don't shave your hair, right? You don't get a haircut when you're mourning for the first 30 days, at least, right? Begun lo Yifraim, and he should not rend his garments. Rashi lo Yifra lo Yigad lo Pera shel Avil. He should not leave his hair unshorn, meaning not cut, as a mourner does. Gidol Pera. What does that mean? 30 days. In other words, he has to cut it before 30 days. Otherwise, he's like a mourner. And we're speaking about the high priest here, right? Now he's going to say, look what the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. Al nefashis meis lo yavai, and to the souls of the dead he should not come. To his mother, to his father and mother, he should not become defiled, impure. Otherwise, he can't go to the funeral. I mean, he can stand outside from the funeral, but he can't go inside the cemetery.
Or a tree that's hanging over it.
Or trees hanging over. Exactly. Rashi 11, because this is the high priest now, the Kohen Gadol. Val nefashis meis, any souls of the dead, but meis, meaning in the tent of the dead, under the same roof, is what we're talking about. Nefashis meis, Rashi, the souls of the dead. Lahav dam. This includes. Why does it say? Why don't you just say why say soul? Because it's including a revias, which is 3 ounces of blood, minames from the corpse. Shemitam b'boil that transmits impurity in a covered area. In other words, let's say the corpse wasn't there, but there was only blood left, and there was 3 ounces of blood left. The corpse was removed, but the blood wasn't cleaned, and he can't walk into that in covering area.
Wow.
He becomes defiled. Love and to his father and mother, he should not become impure. This comes to tell you, mitzvah, only to remit you of the mate's mitzvah. Others, for his parents, he can, but for a mate's mitzvah, he could. Right? Mate's mitzvah, again, is the one that there was no one to attend to the burial. Right? 12. And from the sanctuary, you should not go out. So he can't even go to outside of the cemetery. He has to stay in the sanctuary because he's special holding. He should not profane or desecrate the sanctuary of his God. He nezer Shem and mishchas elakav, because the crown of God's anointing oil is upon him. Ani Hashem, I am God. Rashi in 12. And he should not leave the sanctuary. In other words, he should not go after his parents' funeral behind, like if you're walking outside behind the coffin, you're not going to become impure because it's an open area. You're not allowed to do that. Can't participate. And furthermore, Rashi says, "Mikan lamadnu Rabbi Seino." Our rabbis learned out over here that the Kohen Gadol performs the temple service even as an oinen. Oinen is before burial. You have a mitzvah of now being engaged in taking care of the burial. You are now not obligated to fulfill other mitzvahs as an oinen, because you're occupied in this mitzvah. You're occupied in this mitzvah, you're not obligated in other mitzvahs. Like the day that my father passed away, I didn't put on tefillin that day because there's a mitzvah of being occupied in, and therefore you're exempt from putting on tefillin. Not the Kohen Gadol. Not the Kohen Gadol. Right? He even does the service when he's an oinen. Likewise is implied, even if his father and mother have died, he's not required to leave the sanctuary, but rather he performs the service. He should not defile the sanctuary of God. He should not defile the service thereby by performing it. He does not defile the service as an oinen. Because the verse comes to permit him. But from here we can infer that Kohen Hedjid, but a Kohen Hedjid, a regular Kohen who served to Ali's an oinen, he does defile. In other words, his parents pass away and he does the service that day? No, because he needs to be, he walks behind the coffin. He goes and as part of the, right, even though he's a Kohen. Now and he impurifies it. So he even goes to the cemetery, as we learned, right?
Yeah.
13. Who isha b'psula yikach, and he should take a virgin as a wife. Kohen Gadol we're talking about, right? Almana v'gerusha, a widow or a divorcee, or someone who's desecrated, or a prostitute. Prostitute meaning she had relations. Prostitute doesn't mean, by the way, that she did it for money, right? Prostitute means she had illicit relations.
Is Gentile included in there or not? You can't marry Gentile.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that would be a but that no one can marry a non-Jew, right? So yeah, that it's not included here. This is including the ones that anybody else could marry, like an Israelite can marry. An Israelite can marry, right? And say la yikach, these he shall not take as a wife ki im psula, but rather a psula, a virgin, mi'ama from his people, yikach isha, he shall take as a wife. Rashi chalula shalanim psule kohuna. Here it means desecrate means some that were born from right from the kohen who had a marriage with a divorcee. That girl that gave birth, he cannot marry. Last verse rather, and he shall not desecrate Zara, his offspring, amongst his people, because I am Hashem who has sanctified him. Rashi in 15, he should not defile his offspring. But if he married one of the unfit for the Kohen Gadol, Zara Imeno and his offspring from her Chalul Medin Kedushas Kahuna are defiled from being included in the law of sanctity of Kahuna. So meaning that the children that will be from this unfit marriage will not be able to serve as Kohanim.
Ever. No, that is
Right.
But they're not misers.
Mumsers, no.
Mumsers.
It's not
Even though it's like a forbidden marriage.
right.
You're still Cohens.
No,
No, they're not
that's what he
Cohens.
said. They're not-
Well,
they're not
The
called-
children or the person?
we're talking about the children now.
Oh,
We're talking about the children. The children. Yeah. All right.
But the Cohen is still the Cohen, even if he marries a divorcee.
Baruch Hashem, we got through that.
Okay. Aware that maybe this doesn't apply today, but we know like David's a Cohen, for instance. Like we have Cohen. Well, we don't know, but
Hey, I thought you meant King David.
no,
You said David. I thought
no, I meant
King David. Yes.
Like, we know people are like we say you're a Cohen, you're a Cohen.
Right.
But if you have like a secular Jew who married like a divorcee and they had a kid, and then that secular Jew became like a Baal Teshuva or something, would we then say like you're technically not a Cohen because you're married to this divorcee?
Yeah. So yeah.
So we'd apply that today still. It's not like just
Yeah.
different. Okay.
Yeah. When Mashiach will come, he will tell us who for sure is what.
So there's always a little bit of
Because those are all the generations,
Yeah,
things
who
that
knows?
you don't know
Yeah.
exactly what happened, right?
yeah.